Alright guys, welcome back to this week's tutorial. I kind of want to introduce this haircut by saying this is going to be a wolf cut, but this is going to be my own twist on the wolf cut, putting more of a creative edge onto the haircut. With that being said, let's explain why this is going to be a wolf cut, right? First thing is the back is going to stay longer. So we're going to have length in the back, but also the sideburns are going to stay longer, right? Now, I think the biggest thing about this haircut is that Brian is lacking texture, movement, volume, all the above. Really bringing this haircut to life is the goal today. Although you guys may think this is going to be more of a reshape cleanup, in my opinion, this is going to be a major transformation. I'm very excited to get into this tutorial, but with that being said, I hope you guys have been enjoying all the previous tutorials. This one's a very exciting one that I have prepared for you guys. And yeah, let's get right into the breakdown of this haircut. All right, I want to mention as well, we're going to be using a good amount of disconnection in this haircut today. And when I pinpoint where and when and why I'm going to use these disconnections, I want you guys to pay close attention because this is going to be what's going to separate your game from others when knowing how to use disconnection properly. First section that we're looking for is the cowlick. From the cowlick, we're going to be drawing a section all the way down to right behind the ear, and we're just going to isolate that. And I think a key point of this is that you want to draw it where it naturally wants to fall. So say you do this part and your hair just starts to spring up, then draw it lower or draw it higher. Draw it where it naturally wants to split. You don't want to force the hairs in any directions. For this side, as you guys can notice, the cowlick is sitting a little bit higher. So it's sitting a little bit higher. So we're just going to go a little bit higher, okay? Not everything needs to be even. We're just cutting how everything naturally wants to fall. That's the only way he's going to be able to wear his hair how it naturally wants to be worn. We're just going to isolate this as well. Isolate the back. And we're going to start sectioning the front and the sides. Now, I want to get into the front right here. As we section off the parietal ridge, what I'm looking for is the roundness of the head in the back. So where it begins to round is where I start. Where I finish is going to be the corner of his hairline. So all I need to do is identify that first. Okay, identify the corner of Brian's hairline. Boom, got it. Start from the roundness, draw it all the way to the corner. And there we have it. Section is nice and clean. We're just going to go ahead and isolate the sides off. Alright guys, same thing here. Look for the roundness of the head in the back and go straight into the corner of his hairline. Okay, so you kind of have a guide to work with from the other side. And this way, we're able to just mimic what you've done on the other side. Really easy, guys. This is a very easy step. I always get questions on how do you exactly find where to section. The easiest thing to tell you is just follow my rules of look for the roundness of the head in the back and follow that section all the way straight through until you hit the corner of the hairline. Okay, that's it. And I'm sure you guys know where the corner of the hairline is because I know we have a lot of people in here that are amazing at lineups. Whatever you look for when you're doing a lineup, that's what you're looking for when sectioning this part of the haircut. Section that off, push, section that off as well. And now we have just the back that we are able to work with. So for this haircut, I'm going to start with the back because I feel like the back in this area, I want to choose this choice of length first because in my opinion, that's what I'm rushed to know first so that everything else can kind of be created around that, right? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a section going straight down. I'm going to take a nice vertical line straight down. Vertical line straight down. Now from this section, we're going to go ahead and pull this up. Now what did I say at the bottom? I literally want all of this to stay and I'll maybe touch it up when it's dry. But as of now, I want to keep all the weight and length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this section here and I'm going to see how it's laying. Okay. So wow, we notice a massive disconnection right here, right? Massive disconnection. I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to use that disconnection to my advantage now. So where it begins to disconnect is going to be right around the occipital bone. And right around the occipital bone, I'm going to go ahead and choose my choice of length, nice and tight. And we're going in a round layer because I actually want to remove a lot of that weight. Boom. So boom, we've created that disconnection even larger. So that's the disconnection that we're working with right now, guys. Disconnection number 1. Pay attention closely, and we're going to show you why this disconnection is going to be so crucial at the end. Second section comes in, and we're just going to work one section by one section. And all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pull this up, and we're going to look for that disconnection just one more time. As you guys can see, we remove that disconnection starting from the occipital bone. So all of this stays. Pull that. We're going to stay round horizontally. Check our guide, and we just go in. Nice and tight for the optimal amount of texture. Okay, you guys can see that. Third guide goes in. Boom. Take this guide by guide. Third guide goes in. And we're still staying round, disconnecting everything from the previous guide. Okay, pull. Check your guide. Same thing here. Creating that texture. Okay. Last guide through. And guys, I hope you guys understand I stayed round this entire process. So this entire haircut horizontally is going to be round. Last guide through. Check your guide. Okay, so it's very textured now. And all the length at the bottom is just going to stay. Two different styles. Hope you guys realize that. Okay, finish off this other side. Subsection for this side goes in. All right, and now as you guys can notice, because of that disconnection that I used on this side, the density in the bottom on both sides look the same, right? The left side doesn't even look touched at this point. But if you guys look at the top here, the crown, this side has way more texture and movement, opposed to this side, lacking texture and movement. And I want you guys to realize this difference of why disconnection is so important when getting into these advanced looks. We're trying to create different textures and different choice of lengths in different areas of the head. So the proper use of disconnection is extremely important when trying to execute that. Subsection goes in, boom. Okay, we separate that. Okay, working two guides at a time so that I could be as precise as possible, just because this is working with longer hair. So I want to be able to be precise. Okay, same thing here. Pull this up. Okay, grab that section. Everything underneath the occipital bone stays disconnected, and everything above it, boom. Check your guide. Okay, nice and short. I say nice and short every time, but this is the optimal amount of shortness. Okay, any shorter than this and the crown will just lay flat. Okay, second guide goes in. And I want you guys to understand, same thing here. I'm moving in a round line, right? Round is gonna emphasize what? It's gonna emphasize movement and it's gonna emphasize texture, right? And those two things are probably my biggest points that I'm really focusing on this haircut. Every time I cut Brian's hair, I notice, okay, every time it grows out, loses a little bit of texture, loses a little bit of movement, and we just reshape that in for him. Boom, check our guide, and we just go in. And you might be wondering, why am I cutting like this rather than cutting like this? It's because this is a lot more easier on my body positioning. That's all. It's not a specific technique that I'm using. Okay, rather than going like this is just a lot easier on my shoulders. Okay, that's it. Okay, I don't want to sore my shoulder out before I even start the day. So that's all I'm doing. Guide goes in. Separate that. Subsection goes in. And boom, grab that guide. Everything underneath gets disconnected. The occipital bone is my official guide for the back here now. Check my guide. Easy on my shoulders. And I just cut away and create texture. Last guide through. Staying round. And boom, officially the back is finished. All right, guys, let's move on to the next portion of this haircut, which is going to be the top of the haircut. My biggest challenge here is going to be the focal point, which is the fringe, right? Why is it my focal point? I feel like this is going to make or break the haircut and most important part of the haircut as well. So let's just call it the focal point for now. Now, this needs to lay also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a guide going straight through the middle. And I'm going to grab a horizontal section an inch up from the hairline. And I'm going to draw it horizontally. Now, I want you guys to understand, it may not be exactly a square line from the hairline. So notice how it's slightly diagonal here. So we're gonna go slightly diagonal with the section as well. Same thing on the other side. Okay, we're just drawing a horizontal section straight through. Okay, and we're just gonna isolate the front just like that. All right, so now using my line technique, I'm gonna cut this line using 0 elevation with my feather razor without the blade holder, so I can get maximum control. And I'm just gonna slice into this choice of length, and I'm probably gonna go halfway there. And as I'm cutting, I'm checking if it's laying properly. Okay, boom. Okay, as I'm cutting, I'm making sure it's laying properly. And visually, I think I'm gonna go with a square line. Okay, and as I get to the front here, because I wanna keep a little bit more length towards this corner, okay, so I'm just gonna pull and slice. Okay, so one more time on the right side here, I'm gonna go ahead and set in my choice of length. Okay, and as I get to my corner here, I'm gonna grab that, elevate it slightly, and all I'm gonna do is pull and cut it a little bit longer towards the edge. Just cleaning it up, making sure everything's even. Okay, before I move on to the top. Perfect. All right, so we're gonna move into the layers up top, and we're gonna split it right down the middle, and we're gonna use the middle as a guideline. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick this up, and I'm gonna look for that disconnection, and boom, there it is. You guys see that disconnection? Everyone can see that. So this disconnection is what I'm looking for, and from here, I'm gonna pull up, and I'm gonna cut this into a square line. And same thing here, luckily, this blends into the back, so I could just blend that right in. Second section goes in. And same thing here. I'm gonna be over directing this section back to previous. So as you guys can notice, 2 is gonna go back to 1 because why? We're creating a square shape from the front. So we're gonna go ahead and grab this section here. Boom. See that guide? And we create a textured line. Moving back, same thing here. Over directing back 1 section. We have around 2 more sections left. Okay. Okay, same thing here. We're gonna go ahead and grab this section and over direct it back to previous. Check my guide. Okay, boom. And then last guide through, we're gonna finish this section up. Just cut this last section back to previous as well. Really simple, guys. Now we notice a lot of texture in this front profile here. We're gonna move on to the other side. So we're just gonna go ahead and remove one more section. Section this out of the way as well. And while I'm grabbing that section, I'm making sure I'm over directing back to previous. So if we were pushing before, I guess now we're pulling, right? Okay, and we're just creating that textured line. Okay, pull. We just created another guide on the other side. Create a subsection for it now. Pull into our previous guide, push to check the guide, and boom. Okay, and then last guide is now gonna come over. Very last guide on this side, push everything over, create a subsection. And we're just gonna grab that guide on this left side here. I'm gonna pull into our previous. Okay, once you see the guide. And now the top is finally complete. And as you guys can see, the top is cut completely textured, and we've just re-added texture to the top, and we can finally move into the sideburns. Alright guys, we're going to create our second disconnection of the day here, and it's going to be the sides to the back. So I want the back completely disconnected from the sides. So whatever we do on the sides does not matter from what we're going to do on the top. Now you might be wondering, how are we going to cut the sides, and what is the choice of length going to look like? Remember what I said earlier, the choice of length is going to depend on the length on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a guide vertically straight through. Okay, I'm going to grab a vertical guide straight through. Okay, I'm going to pull this up. And I'm going to look for my disconnecting point on top here. And from that point, I'm going to pull up into a round line. Okay, elevate that line through. And I'm going to cut into that disconnection. And now what is this going to do? It's going to give all this internal area texture, but I'm going to be able to keep the bottom of this haircut longer, which is the sideburns in this case. Okay, I'm using that as my guide and I'm moving forward. So one more guide comes in, boom. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna over direct each section back to previous so that I can create a square horizontal line on the sides as well. Okay, so from here, we over direct back to previous. There's my guide. Same thing here, over direct back to previous. And then last guide comes through, and I'm just gonna over direct this back to previous as well. What kind of movement do we have on the sides? As you guys can see, sideburn still stayed in length, but isn't as long as it was before. And now we have something creative on the sides, but it's not as long as it was before, which gives us that room to be able to style this creatively. All right, so same thing on this other side. We're gonna create a vertical guide going straight down from the top. Okay, boom. And we're gonna isolate this side here. We're gonna go from this side. Okay, we're gonna pull up and look for that disconnection. There it is. Look for that disconnection. We're gonna cut into a round line, which means that we're gonna leave the bottom area of this haircut a little longer, right? Second guide comes in. And we're gonna over direct this back to previous. So in this case, instead of pulling, we're gonna be pushing. Okay, so push back to previous guide. And last guide over, just gonna push everything back. And same thing on this side as well. We have something nice and creative, but we lost a lot of that length. And that's gonna finish up my wet shape. And let's go ahead and blow dry and get into our dry shape, because the dry shape is gonna be a very crucial part of this haircut. So I wanna get into it, but just remember the two disconnecting points was crown into the nape, and the second one was side transition into the back transition. And those two disconnections are gonna play a major role in this haircut. And you guys will be able to see that shortly when I dry this look up. All right guys, we're gonna use zero pre-styler, and I'm just gonna give this a rough blow dry, just making sure everything lays properly. But yeah, the reason why I'm not putting any pre-styler in it, because I'm gonna give this another go when I dry it up, and I'm gonna dry cut this whole look one more time. So there's no point of putting pre-style yet, because I'm not styling this look just yet. So rough blow dry, remember, finger on the crown cowlick and go clockwise first. Just give it a rough blow dry. All right, so I want to mention one thing. When the proper use of disconnection is used, visually, it won't even look disconnected. Same thing with the sides to the back. It won't look disconnected, even if there is a disconnection. First step that I'm gonna take here, guys, is I'm literally just gonna soften up this entire look using my shears. And I'm just gonna go in horizontal sections, and I'm literally just gonna break everything up. I want everything to just lay a little bit softer and have even more texture. So I'm literally just gonna go in, remove some internal weight, but also add some texture at the exact same time. Go straight through the middle. Just gonna keep going point cutting into a lot of these lengths. I'm just moving horizontally, reason being, that's what's gonna set me up for success, because we cut this vertically and now I'm going horizontally and we're just doubling the texture and doubling the movement. And also this is a perfect time for me to cross-check anything. If anything's not laying square, I could just go ahead and touch that up. Same thing with the sides. Go in, check everything out. Not touching too much though. And then mainly in this crown area too, I'm gonna go in and soften up and texturize a lot of this length. I'm kind of almost picking up areas that feel heavy in my hand, and I'm just gonna go in, I'm just gonna clean it up. Now, since this is a visual haircut and this is gonna be a pretty visual finish, I gotta understand how I'm gonna style this look. So I'm gonna cut areas to the ways this is gonna actually end up styling. So how do I want the fringe to sit? How do I want the sideburns to sit? Etc. Okay, so now I'm just imagining how everything is gonna sit. Okay, before throwing any product in there, I'm literally just imagining right now. Just making sure everything's kind of laying the way I want it to. At this point, I understand that most of my shape is set in. It's more about me finalizing this look, touching up the little things that are gonna make a big difference in this look. So wherever I need to really finalize the look or create some more shape, this is my process to do so. Okay, if I need to blend anything in a little bit more, I'm gonna do that now. And what I'm doing is I'm working very visually. I'm really not trying to destroy what I've already created. My goal here isn't to cut off too much or change anything too drastically. Rather, it's to emphasize some things that I've done and really just change how I can see this visually by just touching up the little things, you know? As you guys can see here, I'm removing a little bit more weight off the fringe. That way it can just lay a little bit better too. All you do is hold the comb down and you just tap. That's all. Just trying to make sure everything is laying exactly how I imagine it to lay. Not doing too much, but also making sure I do enough so that I'm satisfied with my final product here. This is like almost like the last time you can kind of touch up anything you really want to touch up. Because once you kind of get into the styling portion, you kind of have to commit to it, right? With a creative haircut like this, I don't like to just style right off the bat. Rather, I'll dry cut with no pre-styler, and then I'll kind of go in with a styling cream or a paste or whatever you want to use and just like add more flavor to it that way. That way you have more control, you know? I'm just trying to see how we can make this area look a little more pretty by slicing into areas like this. Okay, so overall, I like where this is going. I think there's areas that always can be better. So I'm just looking for little details now that I want to remove within this haircut, okay? Might just go a little bit short towards the end, just because I feel like it's like way too dead. Like the hair is almost dead at the end because of the color, right? I'm literally just knocking off those dead ends. It's unnecessary for the most part at the moment, so just knocking all that out. We have a good amount of styling paste of Mason's pomade. This is the new texture paste that released. I'm gonna be adding a good amount into my hands. Okay, rubbing it through. And as I apply this, I'm focusing on applying it evenly. So I'm not just gonna go in, I'm just gonna tap with my fingers first. Making sure it's well spread. Well spread is the perfect way to explain this part. I wanna spread it out evenly, but I also wanna spread it out well. And I could really see this look coming together now. And it's kind of just falling in the ways I imagined it to fall, right? And this is another portion where I'm gonna take that extra 10 minutes in this case, because I'm trying to make this look perfect for you guys. Really spend that extra time and make sure everything is laying exactly how I imagine it to lay. So if that means grabbing more product, I'm gonna do so. A little bit more paste. Bring out some shape in the crown. All Alright guys, we just wrapped up finally finishing off the final style for Brian today. I'm going to be dropping the final look of the 360 side, back, front so that you guys can kind of see the final look of what I've created. I spent like a good 5-10 minutes afterwards finishing off the style for Brian's hair, and I want to mention before I leave this video that when you're doing a creative look like this, styling is 50%. You can do a creative haircut, you can do a creative style, but if you don't know how to style properly, that's gonna be your biggest problem of that haircut. And I wanna mention 25% of that is gonna be knowing how to use hairspray correctly. So one thing I wanna say before finishing off is if you wanna lift areas up, you grab a little bit of the hair, spray it, and you hold it. Using this will be your best tool when post-styling a haircut like this. Second thing I want to mention is using tools like your scissor or your feather razor to really finish and polish off little areas at the end. I consider that more styling than cutting because you're achieving that final razor cut or that final snip with your scissor for the style. After the haircut is finished, use these 3 tools to finish off your haircut, and I'm sure that you guys will see a major difference in your haircuts. With that being said, let's get into the final look.